Hey everybody, we are live. This is an extra, I'm going to call it an Interlull Extra Arsenal fan circle here with my old mate from Gundan News, Mahir Abrams,
Good
and
evening.
and of course James Rowe. Um, when we were formulating this program, this show, and yes, was at the 11th hour. I was thinking, who else to talk about Dennis Bergkamp but our own James Rowe, the friend of the
E-
channel.
Evening. Hello, guys. How are you both?
I'm good, James. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Um,
Regards from this Amsterdam evening.
I hope everybody is surviving this boring interlull, and we will try to fill in the gaps in your life with a small podcast here. But if you haven't had the opportunity already, consider subscribing. Hit that like button right now before we get started. Hit that like button and share this episode, please. It's about one of our Arsenal greats in Dennis Bergkamp. Now, uh, let me tell you how we got to this point. After last weekend's results, we did win, right, James? We did
We
win
did,
our last game. 1
we
0.
did, but I think it's been a little bit of an overreaction from fans. They maybe expected Arsenal to win 3-4-5-0, but 3 points is the most important thing, and it's still early in the season. We've got games coming thick and fast with the League Cup and with the Europa League as well. And it's a long old season, as we know only too well. And we've also, as I said on Alex Cannon for the podcast the last time out as well, Arsenal fans have got to start to enjoy the season. We spend 3 months in pre-season where everybody's excited, everybody's wondering what's going to happen, and sometimes you get a bit of discontent by people saying, "Oh, I'm not too happy with this," and let's just enjoy the ride. Let's just enjoy the season because it
Pause.
goes by. It goes by in the blink of an eye. We're doing okay in the league. We've only lost one game. Would you believe in the Premier
Yeah,
League? Much what
yeah.
people might think. If we win our next European match against Vitória Guimarães, it looks as if we're almost in the last 32. I think we are. I would give us a good chance winning at Anfield in the League Cup. I'm quite quietly confident, and yeah, it's a long old season as we know only too well.
So welcome into Alex from Cannon Fodder TV, and welcome in Reason UK, a recent subscriber. So yeah, wanted to get out of the Arsenal bubble last week. So I actually checked up on a YouTube channel. Liverpool are riding a high right now. 8 games. They've won their first 8 games in the head, and actually absolutely amazing result for them. It's going to give them a shot in the arm. Last week, under you could call it controversial circumstances, Mahir, but Liverpool pulled out a win last Saturday versus Leicester.
Look, as James just said, 3 points is 3 points. We can be unhappy about the style of play, about formations, etc., etc. But when you desperately need it, these points is what going to matter. James, for example, like last season, I had to go back, but for example, last season when we fell out, we literally fell out by 1 point. We literally
Mm,
could have won the
Mm-hmm.
last game of the season versus Brighton, and they threw
mm,
that away. They were given another chance in the Europa League final versus Chelsea,
mm.
but matter
Yeah.
of fact, ugly results, I'll take all day, any day. I'm sure any of us will do the same.
Mm.
Yeah. So welcome in Ryan from Mr. Arsenal podcast, and yes, we're getting right to that now, Ryan. Um, so Liverpool are riding that crest of the wave. James, we were there 15, 20 years ago. We were riding that crest of a wave.
We were.
Tell
How
us
times
tell us about life before Wenger.
before Arsene Wenger.
Yeah,
Oh, you mean the George Graham days?
the George Graham days.
Yeah. Well, we actually won in Europe in those days. Would you believe? We actually won a European trophy. It remains one of the fondest memories I ever have as in my 30 years of following the club. We won league titles, FA Cups and League Cups, and had a real fight about us and real fire in our belly. But I get the impression now that everybody, shows their discontent very early. And obviously, I respect the opinion of every Arsenal fan, but when you see the likes of people tweeting that Jose Mourinho is going to be the new Arsenal manager next season, when Unai Emery is still in a job, you think, as I said before, I'm in a privileged position to interview professional players and managers on a regular basis. And I've spoken to the likes of Graham Potter, who's now managing Brighton and Hove Albion, and Danny Cowley, who's now a Huddersfield Town manager. And when you listen to these managers, you realise that, they are dealing with not just a squad of 15 players, 16 players on a match day. They're dealing with long-term visions for football clubs that have consequences for players, that have consequences for the whole club. And every time you change a manager, you're basically changing the entire ethos of a club. And our previous manager had 22 years experience, and his successor is only just into his second season, where we reached our first European final for 13 years and almost won a European trophy. Yeah. Unai Emery needs time. I mean, I may be in the minority here, but it's just my personal opinion. If Unai Emery wins a trophy this season, hence I didn't say top 4. It's just my opinion. If Unai Emery wins a trophy this season, then I would happily extend his contract. A trophy is the most important thing. If Arsenal don't win a trophy this season, it's 4 years since Arsenal last won a trophy. Yeah. We've gone 17 years without a trophy. Would you believe if people taking 17 years in this day and age? We've gone 18 years without a trophy. We've gone 9 years without a trophy. But it would be nice. It would be nice to win a trophy this season. I can understand people getting worked up, but who's to say a new manager comes in and we have exactly the same result? What are they going to say then? Change the manager yet again? Arsenal were never a club to sack managers. And it's not the Arsenal way. You've got to give managers time. I see my timeline sometimes, and you see people advocating different things. Ray, I asked the same question to Alex on Cannon Fodder. What would be the reaction to fans on Twitter now if you remember the days of when we had Stuart Houston as caretaker, or the days of Bruce Rioch, or the days when we lost at home to Wimbledon on a rainy afternoon, on a Saturday afternoon? You wonder. But I think people have short memories. I think, and let's just enjoy the season and let's just enjoy the ride. We don't know what's going to happen.
Let's
just enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Now let's get out of this bubble and let's go back to our 30 years ago. George Graham days when I started supporting Arsenal. Let's say we won the league in 1989 in dramatic circumstances, but the league does not lie. We won 2-0 at Anfield. We followed up in 1991 with almost unbeaten season, just losing one game. Conceding only a paltry amount of goals, 18 goals, and a lot of that was without Mr. Tony Adams, who recently had a birthday. Happy birthday to Mr. Adams,
indeed,
our Captain Fantastic. We go on, then we turn into a bit of a cup team in 1993. Well, at that point, we had bought Ian Wright for $2.5 million, and some of the best football you're going to see an Arsenal team play in those years. Kevin Campbell was part of it, and Ian Wright. And then what happens in 1995, James?
Well, what happened in '95 is the club spent £7.5 million on a player who would become, in my opinion, the greatest Arsenal player I have ever seen in Mr. Dennis Bergkamp.
Yeah. The result of David Dean and Bruce Rioch. Bruce Rioch was the manager at the time. And it started a wonderful period for the club of pretty much spanning all of Dennis Bergkamp's career at Arsenal.
Yeah, 11 years. 11 years. But if I can just take fans back to how this all started, a lot of fans might not know Dennis Bergkamp arrived at Ajax at the age of 12. And he was coming through the Ajax Youth Academy. Before breaking through to the first team, he was training to be a physiotherapist. And he thought that he could combine his physiotherapy studies with becoming a professional footballer. But by his own admission, football was taking up far too much of his time. And he just said by his own admission, I can't combine the two. I've got to choose one. So he gave everything for his football. He debuted for Ajax in 1986 under Johan Cruyff,
Yes,
and then
Cruyff gave him his debut.
yeah, I mean Cruyff watched him in the reserves, and it was a reserve game, and he went to the then manager and he said Bergkamp has to come off now, and the reserve team manager looked at him and said, why has he got to come off? And then since then he was training with the first team. He was involved in European Cup matches against Malmo and helping them win the European trophies as well at Ajax, and becoming Player of the Year here in the Netherlands as well, and also at international level. He was a big part of the Dutch side that qualified for the 1994 World Cup. I mean, I remember Martin Keown's saying about when he played against him, and he scored that famous goal at Wembley in the qualifiers where Keown thought it was a fluke. But I don't know if Martin Keown since seen it. There's an Ajax documentary where Bergkamp recreates exactly the same goal in training, and then he scores exactly the same goal in a competitive game. But it's just an absolutely tremendous player. I'm fortunate enough to live in his home city, and I was fortunate enough to interview his nephew Roland Bergkamp in August 2017, where I was invited to the RKC Waalwijk Stadium to interview him, and naturally it was about Roland's career and what he's achieved. But I remember asking him just one question about his uncle, and he replied with the following question, where he himself became an Arsenal fan. And I remember him telling me that he used to watch his uncle on TV, and he used to sometimes get mad because sometimes he'd expect him to do something really, really special, and then you wouldn't see him for 15-20 minutes, and then all of a sudden he'd come up with the winning assist or the winning goal. But even fellow teammates as well, even at international level, if you ask some of his former teammates such as Frank Rijkaard or Hans van Breukelen, the former goalkeeper, he was so professional. He was just so professional in everything that he did. He was just so driven, and he always wanted to give his best. And there was, a side of him that had this fantastic will to win. And he was always a gifted footballer. I don't know if either of you or any of the fans watching have read his autobiography, where I remember one passage that stuck with me, where he said that he used to kick the ball against the wall, and used to watch how the ball would rebound and the
Yes.
direction
Yes.
that it would take. He was such a perfectionist, and even now in the Netherlands, you can see even in the Ian Wright interview, you can see it in snippets where he leads a very quiet life here in the Netherlands. He's very much family orientated, and that has to be respected. And just a tremendous career. He was very proud to play for Ajax and help them win European titles and Eredivisie titles, and played under the likes of Johan Cruyff and also Louis van Gaal. And there was times where maybe not many listeners will know this, but when he signed for Inter, obviously the transfer window was different then, and news had broken that he signed for Inter Milan along with his teammate Wim Jonk, and he was criticised in the Dutch media and by some fans that he's taking his foot off the gas a little bit, and he maybe wasn't as motivated, which wasn't true. But there's even cases where he was subbed off by Van Gaal. Van Gaal would sub him off because he would think about changing the game. But he was just so driven, and he wanted to try football in England and felt comfortable. And just an amazing player. Just I'm so privileged to have seen him play live on many occasions before I left for the Netherlands. I'm also so privileged to have interviewed his nephew, who's also a professional footballer, and been able to speak to someone who's very close to him, and obviously was is in like a contact with him with being a family member. And even I think a lot of people forget, even the Ajax faithful are still very proud of him. It's not just Dennis Bergkamp that played for Arsenal. Ajax fans are very proud of him, and he's with the titles that he helped them to. And he was even in the backroom. He was even in the backroom staff of flanked the ball and Beta Boss during I think 2011 to 2017. And I interviewed one of the former Ajax players, Demi Hoosen, who plays for San Jose Earthquakes in the MLS. And he was telling me about the times where he would receive specialist training from Bergkamp, where he would teach him how to be so calm and so cool in front of goal and to not panic and to pick your spot. And it really helped him and stood him in good stead. And he says in the interview with Ian Wright that he would like to return to Arsenal one day. And I think everything in its own time. You see that. The respect he has as a family man when his children are all grown up and, coming into an Arsenal setup, but everything in its own time. He started off at Ajax here when he would train for youth players. And you imagine being 9, 10, 12 years old and being trained by someone of that stature. And he really enjoyed that. And one of his most recent roles was helping the youth team of Almere City, a first division team here in the Netherlands, where his own son Mitchell is part of the reserve team squad. And he also really enjoyed that. So he's very much likes the quiet life, and we're very lucky to have had him. I mean, I can understand people saying about Thierry Henry being the greatest Arsenal player, but how many times did Bergkamp set him up? How many times did he provide an assist for Henry? How many times did he create space? I mean, I remember being I think my last ever game at Highbury was against Celta Vigo in 2004, and that was before I moved here. And I remember a passage of play which led to I think the second goal. We're on 2-0, where Bergkamp is surrounded by about 3 or 4 players and is juggling with the ball, creating space, slips the ball through to Thierry Henry, and Henry makes it, I believe, 2-0. And even then, the time he did that against Juventus.
Oh, yeah, that's the one I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah, but this one against Celta Vigo was arguably very similar in terms of especially the through ball. I mean, I remember his goals against the likes of Bayer Leverkusen when in what was back then the second Champions League group phase. I think we won 4-1, I believe. And I remember him chipping the goalkeeper from distance. I remember his great goals against Sunderland, and I think it was Barnsley as well, and even Preston in the FA Cup when we were losing at the time, I believe.
And Mahir, I'm going to get you into the conversation soon, but James, it's my opinion that maybe Freddie Ljungberg benefited most from Dennis Bergkamp's service. Who do you think among strikers and wide players benefited most from Bergkamp's vision?
I think because of the space it created. I think he was just so aware of time and aware of space, and that kind of skill and gift, if you like, was formed here in the Netherlands. I mean, I remember there's an old interview that he gave to Dutch TV, I think Casey Jansma, I believe, when he was only 21 years old, when he's just broken in, and he was being asked what his strengths are and what his weaknesses are, and he said, I can score goals and I like to provide assists, and scoring is very important, but also my heading could be improved and things like that. But he was always very, very very, very modest, and especially in his way of being. I think that's due to his upbringing, where his parents would often say about, studying is very important, hence why he really wanted to become a physiotherapist before going into professional football. And it was made clear to him that he's got to take his studies very seriously. And he's just a very, very intelligent footballer. And just it's been an absolute honour to have seen him play for my club.
So, Mahir, take that comment there from Reason UK. Media thought Dennis would score bagfuls for us, but his strength was playmaking. Ideal for righty. Mahir, Ian Wright always seemed to be at the end of the play having tap-ins, left, right, and centre. But you have to be a good striker to be in those positions. Are you there? Are you frozen? And I'm particularly getting that, James, that Ian Wright is becoming a, how do you say it, to Eddie Nketiah. He's given him advice, a confidant. Do you think Nketiah could have similar traits to Ian Wright?
Possibly. Possibly, but I think it's really good. It's really good. I mean, Ian Wright is, again, an Arsenal legend, and I remember that. I remember the famous documentary he did with about David Rocastle, and I remember a quote from Steve Coppell where he was saying about, when Ian Wright first arrived at Crystal Palace, and Steve Coppell said that of all the qualities that Ian Wright had, it would take years now to format someone like that in a youth academy. And Ian Wright already had these things in his locker. And I think the thing with Nketiah as well, one thing that I'm reminded of, I recently interviewed Sanchez Watt, who came through the Arsenal Youth Academy and debuted, I believe, in 2009. And he was telling me about, he also went on loan to Leeds from Arsenal. And my interview with him is released in a couple of weeks' time. But I remember one, I'll give listeners a quick snippet now. He was telling me that time, the youth players at the club didn't really want to go on loan. And they appeared to be a little bit too comfortable just training with the first team. And he really wanted to go on loan. And he went on loan to Leeds United. And he said he had a tremendous time. The fans really live for the club and really help the young players, even the players that come on loan. They really take them into their hearts and really want to look after them and give them encouragement. And I think Nketiah has gone to a really good club. Leeds is still an absolutely huge club.
Yeah,
and
in the Midlands.
he's under the tutelage of one of the best managers in the world. Really, I mean, this is a manager in which Simeone and Guardiola, before they both embarked on their respective managerial careers, went to Bielsa to ask him for advice, and that just shows you how much high regard they held him in. And this is a manager as well that was in charge of Argentina and let a lot of young Argentinian players come through. So I think Nketiah is in a tremendous place at the moment, and I hope Leeds can have a very successful season. I do firmly believe they will. I firmly believe they will get promoted. I'll be shocked if they don't. Mind you, I said that last year, but particularly ever more so this year. And I think if he can get success with Leeds and score goals, I think he'll come back to Arsenal, an even better player.
Great. Mahir, let me give you some facts. Let's go back to Dennis Bergkamp, the early days, and then we'll get into the Arsenal days. So I'm going to read off a paragraph I have here from Mahir, and you can comment then. So Dennis Bergkamp, as we know, started off at Ajax. Johan Cruyff did give him his debut, and they did win in 1986-87 the European Cup Winners' Cup with Dennis Bergkamp coming on as a substitute. In 1989-90 season, when we were winning the league, well, the year that after we had won the league at Anfield, Ajax won the Eredivisie for the first time in 5 years. 1990-91, when we did win our league, only losing one goal and conceding 18 goals. Dennis was joint top goal scorer with PSV striker Romario, scoring 29 goals in 36 games. Mahir, what do you think of that?
That is absolutely phenomenal. It just shows you the type of player that Bergkamp was and the advantage that it was to us that we really needed him for that specific role. We needed that special player to make our club that little bit much better, which in turn improves how many goals Righty was scoring because the advantage of having such a phenomenal player, right? But always providing assists for your striker. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's basically a no-brainer. And also one other thing, like James mentioned, the best type of people are those that live quietly and just get along. They just work. They work their socks off basically, blood, sweat, and tears. He's regarded as such a great player, not only because of the type of uh, playmaker that he was, but the type of person that he was. Humble
Mm-hmm.
and professional. I mean, who doesn't love those type of people?
And
And I mean, helping Ajax. I mean, at that time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, even the Arsenal supporters of old times were shocked that Bergkamp actually moved because they loved him so much, that he moved to the Arsenal.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
luckily enough for you guys as well, I mean, like you just said, you had the opportunity to see him actually live in action,
Mm.
and in terms with yourself interacting with his nephew, who's an ex footballer,
Mm.
professional footballer still today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I mean,
So,
He
I mean,
has dropped down. He
this
has
I'm
dropped down a
really at a
division.
loss for words.
so James, he finished off with Ajax in the 1991-92 season, winning the UEFA Cup final, beating Torino on away goals. And then he was the top goal scorer again between 91 and 93. And
Mm.
finally, he was voted Dutch Footballer of the Year. And
Yeah.
that's how he kind of finished with Ajax.
Well, as I said earlier on in the podcast as well, it's not just Arsenal fans that hold him in such high regard. It's also Ajax fans and also Dutch national team fans as well. You know, he had a tremendous European Championship in 1992. You know, a qualifying campaign in 1994. You know, I remember watching an interview with him where he said that when he hears the Dutch national anthem when he was a kid, it used to really move him. And when he was lined up to represent his country, it would really motivate him. And, you know, he's just so proud to play for his country. I mean, he scored 37 goals for the Dutch national team, I believe, in
Mhm.
79 caps. I think his last match was at Euro 2000 here in the Netherlands.
Hell of a
And
ratio.
yeah, hell of a ratio, but also important goals as well. I mean, I remember those for goals in the qualifying campaigns against England, both in Rotterdam and also at Wembley. And I was very young, but there were still two excellent goals. And he's just a tremendous, tremendous player. You know, I mean, as my hair says, you know, we were very lucky to see him play live. I mean, I remember going to see Arsenal home and away at that time, and you're paying about £20 for your ticket, and you're seeing. I mean, I remember going to Vicarage Road in the I think 2001 2002 season, where we drew Watford away at Vicarage Road in the FA Cup third round, and we won 4-2. And we had a starting lineup of the likes of Sol Campbell, Freddie Ljungberg, Dennis Bergkamp, and Thierry Henry. And I think my ticket was 20 quid. And I think my train ticket to Watford cost me even more. But I remember being behind the goal. I think the away end at Vickers Road has since been changed, but I remember being in the away end that day with I think about 5,000 Arsenal fans, and we won 4-2, and we went on to win the FA Cup. But when you saw
Yeah.
those players coming to warm up, it was really, really special. You know, there's such a fantastic group of players, such a fantastic will to win. I mean, I remember just finally as well talking Robin van Persie when he gave a Dutch television interview when he first signed for Arsenal, and he was saying about the time when I think he'd been at Arsenal a couple of years actually, sorry, and he was saying about the time where he would watch Dennis Bergkamp train, and he was recovering from an injury, and he had a training session of 45 minutes one on one with a youth player and a team coach. And Van Persie, by his own admission, said that he did not give the ball away once. He did not make a single error in passing, and this is just a
Mhm.
training. This is just a training
Amazing.
drill, just absolutely amazing, and just so modest as well. You know, I mean, I'll try to send it to you both later. There's a Dutch video on YouTube where a television personality, Harry Vermegen, who would used to go and interview Dutch players and have fun and talk about different things. He does Bergkamp does a training drill with Alex Manninger, where he basically teaches Harry Vermegen how to take the perfect penalty. And it's a great video. It's a very simple video of, you know, how do you take the perfect penalty? What do you do? But I will send it to you both after the podcast is finished tonight, and you can have a look and give you a little bit of a transcript as to what he actually says and things like that. And you know, I'm very lucky as well because I grew up admiring him from afar as an Arsenal fan, not far from London, and then I coincidentally moved to his home city, learned his mother tongue because obviously I live here, and then you listen to him. I always used to listen to Bergkamp in English, and then all of a sudden you listen to him in his mother tongue, and it's just really special to listen to him and to
Mm.
hear him say what he has to say, and really clever, just such a clever player.
All right, James,
James,
we're up to 1993.
Yep.
Arsenal are winning 2 cups. They become
Yep.
cup specialists. Ian
Mm.
Wright is instrumental in winning both finals.
Yep.
What's Dennis Bergkamp doing in
Well,
1993?
it's obviously he's at Inter Milan, and I think maybe listeners may remember his Inter Milan side beat Norwich, who were in the I think UEFA Cup back then. I remember him scoring a penalty against Norwich at Carrow Road, and helping Inter to I think they won went on to win the UEFA Cup that year, I believe.
Yeah,
And but he always found, by his own admission, for the Italian press a little bit intrusive, for his
yeah,
own privacy
yeah.
and private family life. And I
In,
think Inter Milan.
in
Uh,
my research is sort of like that. We know Dennis Bergkamp is a shy and introverted person. He likes to go home after a game. I feel like the fans did not warm to him in that way because he didn't leave himself open to the public.
mm. Well, I think he remained professional, and
Hmm.
I think he would say himself, he learned a lot in Italy. He learned a lot at Inter Milan, and that stood him in good stead. And he's you can say about the defending as well, but I think the manager they had at the time was very defensive, which also didn't help him. And I just think he felt that it was best to move on. By his own admission, he wanted to go to England, and it was just an absolute
Yeah,
masterstroke from Arsenal, from the whole. I mean, he changed the whole, just
yeah,
changed the whole DNA of the club. I mean, I remember when he signed, and I think when he signed for Arsenal, I think I was 12 years old, and I remember that goal he scored in Rotterdam and the goal at Wembley, and I thought, oh, I remember those goals. They were really good. And then for his first 8 games, I believe, he didn't score for Arsenal. Didn't score. And, lots of fans were getting on his back. And I think what's really telling in the interview as well is when he tells Ian Wright that when he takes his shot against Southampton, he's looking behind the goal at the reaction of the fans.
yeah.
That just tells you as well. I mean, we mentioned before we went on air tonight, that is a tremendous interview for me, right? But one of the things that stick with me is when they talk about Arsene Wenger's appointment, and Bergkamp says to Ian Wright, about Arsene Wenger, I knew of him because he was, along with Ajax, the only team in Europe playing 4-3-3. Now, if that is not someone who is cleverness, not just on the pitch but off it in terms of awareness, then I really don't know what is, because I don't think a lot of players in this day and age now would be able to tell you, 15, 20 years down the line, oh, they were playing a specific formation of a manager who went to come and manage the club that I play for. And he was just very happy at Arsenal. And, he was saying about the times when towards the end of his career he was subbed off and he wasn't too happy. But he had that towards the end of his career at Ajax as well, when Van Gaal would also sub him off for different reasons. It was never a deliberate thing. And Van Gaal himself, I mean, I remember seeing an interview with Louis Van Gaal, when he said that, a player is never happy to be subbed off.
No,
They don't make a
no.
substitution. They don't sub off good players. It's just how you deal with it. But just absolute tremendous professionalism, and we're so lucky to have seen him play live. And I mean, I can understand, as I say, I respect the opinion of every Arsenal fan, but I mean, just because someone scored the most goals for the club doesn't necessarily make them the best player the club has ever had. And when you have the likes of Thierry Henry and Ian Wright both saying that Dennis Bergkamp is the best player they both played alongside, that tells you something. And
Well,
James,
just a wonderful player.
yes, Matt here.
yeah, James, we actually have a question for you from Reason UK. I'd like to just shout out to all our subscribers at the moment.
Yeah.
Please follow James as well on
Thank you very
his
much.
various social media.
James
Yeah.
Rowe, NL.
The question
Thank you.
Yeah, James Rowe NL.
That's
And
correct. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The question is, why did Bergkamp struggle at Inter Milan?
I think he struggled at Inter Milan. I think primarily due to the manager he had and the teammates around him, where the Inter Milan team were very much defence orientated and very much a Catenaccio style, as they call it. And also back then the Italian league was also very very strong. You know, you could argue, but back then it was the strongest league in Europe, and I
And
just think
James,
it's
that was the league he wanted to go to. He wanted to go to Juventus or Inter because it was
mm,
the best league at the time.
yeah, but that just
Mm,
shows the ambition as well. But I just think that things kind of took their course, and he's also a very honest person. You know, he's very honest in regards to his teammates, very honest in terms of what he wants to achieve. And I just think that he felt it was time to move on. But you also mustn't forget he also had success with Inter. You know, they won
Hmm.
that
Yep,
UEFA Cup. You know, it's not as if they didn't have any success. You know,
yep.
he won the
exactly.
cup, Winners' Cup with Ajax. He won the UEFA Cup with Inter. The only thing that was missing was the Champions League with us, and I still can't believe to this day that he never played a part in the Champions League final in 2006. You know, and
Well, we'll get
I,
to that. We'll get to that. We'll go through the years. We're going to go through the years.
yeah,
Let's
Yeah,
reminisce. Let's
absolutely.
reminisce, James. 1995. We already have a record signing in Ian Wright at 2.5 million, an absolute snip from Crystal Palace. And who did we go and sign a few years later? Under Bruce Rick and David Dean.
mm,
One Dennis Bergkamp.
mm.
I still remember seeing that newspaper.
Yeah. What did it say?
I can't remember it word from word, but Arsenal has signed Dennis Bergkamp! Exclamation mark.
I don't know if I told you this before. I remember just going off track just a little bit, just a tiny little bit, talking about
Yeah.
newspaper headlines. I remember where I was when I found out that Arsene Wenger was manager of Arsenal. I was in a supermarket doing grocery shopping with my mother, and I went to check the newspaper stand to see if there was any news about the new Arsenal manager. And I remember turning the page, and I remember seeing the headline, "No more arsing around. Arsene Wenger is the new Arsenal manager." And
Yep.
it's kind of a headline which stuck with me. I thought it was quite funny.
Well, the other one
But
was Arsene who,
yeah, but I remember the one. I remember the headline that said "No more arsing around." I remember that headline.
but I also remember walking to work and buying the newspaper. It was one of the rags, one of those rag newspapers. But it did say Bergkamp signs for Arsenal or something to
Yeah,
that effect. I was amazed on cloud nine.
yeah, just tremendous. Just a tremendous bit of business. And Bruce Rioch only had one season at Arsenal, but you've also got to remember that he played a huge part in signing the club's, arguably the club's greatest ever player,
Yep.
and that must also not be forgotten.
Remember some of the young Gooners. You heard it here first. Bruce Rioch was the manager when Dennis Bergkamp was signed.
And before that, Stuart Houston was caretaker.
Yep. Up
And with
until now, we're up till October 1996. What happened then?
October 1996 was his first goal, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, against Southampton.
Yep.
And do you know who
Um,
set him up? Do you remember who set him up?
was it Ian Wright? No, Merson.
No, Glenn Helder.
Glenn Helder. Okay, the winger,
Yeah,
the
Glenn
Dutch
Helder.
winger.
Yeah, he kind of fell out of favour at Arsenal, but was
Where
highly rated.
do you know where Glenn Helder is now?
I know that I believe he's also a percussionist. I think he's a musician as well. He's here in the Netherlands. He's had a little bit of a checkered past towards the end of his career with a few personal difficulties,
Right.
but I think he's now on Dutch TV talking about football. I actually had correspondence with him on Twitter a couple of months ago when I told him about the old footage that was on, I believe, before the Arsenal Napoli match. I think it was. There was like old footage of when Glenn Helder signed for Arsenal, and going with his agent to Highbury to sign for the club. And I tweeted it out, and he gave it a like, and we had a bit of correspondence on Twitter, which was nice. And yeah, he set Bergkamp up that day, to score his first goal for the club, and I believe he scored 2 goals that day.
He did.
And then the rest is history, as they say.
Mahir, we're up to 1996, and Dennis Bergkamp scored not just 1 goal, but 2 goals to break his supposed drought after 7 games. There's some parallels to take, Mahir, for this season as well with Pepe.
Okay.
So Dennis Bergkamp needed 7 games, and he was talk about the interview. He was living in a hotel as well with his wife.
Yeah.
Mahir, what did you? Sorry, James, go ahead.
I was going to ask you both if you remember in that interview, Bergkamp says about a player needing 6 months to adjust to Premier League football. Do you both think that specifically the younger generation, now that Bergkamp has said that, do you think that they will actually understand now that a player does need time to adapt and that the pressure might come off Pepe a little bit?
You're the youngest here, Mahir. You answer that. The young pup.
Okay. In all honesty, right? It's 2 different generations. I wish the younger generation of today's time, I wish the younger generation or the younger players of today, such as, like the Willocks and the Ceballos, they are very young still. They have a lot of time to thrive. But what they do need to understand is, fans get on their backs, but they shouldn't pay too much attention to what we're saying. Because certain fans are just slating Pepe left, right, and center. What they don't realize is our legends have actually mentioned it takes 6 months. But we only say the things we say. Not me specifically, not Ray maybe specifically, even yourself, James. But we want overnight success, man. We want immediate change and immediate results. Same thing as you said. People are saying Emery out. People are saying Mourinho is going to take over. I don't know what those people are on, what medication they're on. We respect everybody's opinions, but do you really want to rebuild from the start? Because it's going to be a new manager. New manager might not want current players who have only been with us for a few months. Say Mourinho comes in, for example, and takes over. Maybe he doesn't want Torreira in the midfield. Maybe he doesn't want these all these. We're gonna go back to square one and back to the drawing board, completely erase everything that we've worked on, and have a new manager, and the same thing's gonna happen.
James.
But with regards
Excellent.
to, yeah, like I'm saying, that's just my personal opinion. Like, I wish they would
Excellent, Mahir. And
realize
to your point,
the
James,
fans not to get on the players' backs. It's gonna take time.
James, I do agree. You make a good point that younger fans
Bergkamp,
watching.
a lot of them have taken quite a while to score their first goals, and since then they kicked on.
But James, yeah, I do think you make a good point. Younger viewers watching that documentary may realize to give Pepe a little bit more slack.
Yeah, you would hope so. You really would. I mean, as I say, I respect the opinion of every Arsenal fan, but this a quick fix is never a good solution.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see that people are advocating the likes of Allegri in or Mourinho in, you've got to give a manager time. You really have. I mean, as you know, I was fortunate enough to interview club legend Bob Wilson a couple of weeks ago now, and the interview will be published in the next couple of weeks. And he was telling me about the Fairs Cup win. The Fairs Cup win was the first trophy in 17 years. In 1970, and 17 years for a club of Arsenal's stature is a long time. Just to ask the question from Recent UK with Paul Ince, into around the same time. I believe that he was. I think he was. It might have been the season before Bergkamp arrived. I'm not so sure. And yeah,
Don Juan,
Dan
shout
Juan
out to Don Juan.
mentioned about the goal against Argentina, the
A
pass
great.
of 40 yards. That tremendous pass from flank de ball, fantastic control. But as I said earlier on in the podcast, Ray, you only have to listen to the likes of Frank de Boer, Frank Rijkaard, Hans van Breukelen to know when they speak about Bergkamp how professional he was and how respected he was by his teammates, because there was just such a tremendous will to win and such a mutual respect. I mean, for example, in Euro 2000, his last international tournament where they reached the semi-finals, he was an elder statesman then and played a huge part in helping the younger players. For example, Patrick Kluivert, he provided assists for Kluivert. I remember their 6-1 demolition, I think it was of Yugoslavia, I think, in
Yeah.
2000. And it just goes to show. And so I would often say, although Bergkamp is linked with Arsenal, and quite rightly so, but people must also not forget, he's held in extremely high regard by Ajax and also by the Dutch national team.
Let's recreate this goal against Argentina for the Arsenal team against Sheffield United. So Tierney's
Yeah,
going to play the ball all the way
yeah.
across. Who's scoring the goal up front? Who do you have scoring the goal? Pepe,
Well,
Pepe Aubameyang, or Lacazette, or
I think
Torreira, because
no,
he's that far forward.
I think Lacazette could pull off something like a goal like that. I think. I mean, okay, there's only one Dennis Bergkamp. There's only one of him, but I've seen Lacazette score many goals from long range before. So in terms of long range shots and prowess and things like that. But yeah, that it was a very difficult game for the Netherlands in Marseille against Argentina,
Yep.
and it took a moment of magic to really get through that game and go on to reach the semi-finals. And it was a tremendous goal. I mean, I remember watching it at home as a young boy, and just a tremendous goal, and being so proud that he played for my club, and also for a Dutch national team that was a great side. The likes of Overmars and Kluivert and Van der Sar and De Boer and Philippe Cocu was
James.
that 98 side. That 1998 side they had was a tremendous side, and very unlucky not to win it. But they came up against a very resolute Brazil, and unfortunately they didn't make the final.
So James, I'm thinking about that goal. I've got hairs on the back of my neck thinking about that goal. I'm thinking perhaps once in a lifetime type of goal. Only the only person in the world that has done it more than once is Dennis Bergkamp.
Yeah. Well, some of the goals I mean, I would advise viewers and listeners to have a look on YouTube about some of the goals that he scored for Ajax. They really were tremendous. They really were, and they're not just. I mean, I remember an interview he gave to Dutch media many years ago when he was only 21. I think one of the first ones he did with a broadcaster, Casey Jansma, a very famous broadcaster here in the Netherlands, and he was he was asked by Casey Jansma. He said, "Is the Dutch league, is it quite weak, or is it really a challenge for you?" And he wasn't being derogatory about the league. He was just asking him a question. And Bergkamp said no. He said maybe it's due to the fact that we're very good. And if you're very good, like the Ajax team of now is a very good side.
Hmm.
And a lot of people write off the Dutch league and the Eredivisie that it's not very good. But as someone who's watched it firsthand for more than a decade, it's an acquired taste. And if you look, there are some very good players here. It's not just simply the case of when you sign a player from the Netherlands that's for example, the likes of Ruud van Nistelrooy, and obviously people may point to Alfonso Alves at Middlesbrough. He scored 34 goals for Heerenveen here, who are also quite a big side. But there are some very good players in the Eredivisie. It just takes a little bit of a scouting mission, really.
100 Dennis Bergkamp at Ajax, 122 goals in 239 matches. That's
Yeah.
over one every other game.
Yeah,
That's
and also
amazing.
assists assists provided as well,
Yeah.
Ray. He provided a lot of assists, but also someone coming born and raised in Amsterdam. You know, Amsterdammers are very proud of Ajax. They're very proud of their club. I mean, you see that, you saw that last year with the Champions League campaign as well, and it's just he really understood what coming through the youth academy was. You know, he arrived at Ajax at the age of 12 and debuted at the age of 17, and helped them to win European trophies such as the Cup Winners' Cup. You know, this is, I mean, the game against Malmo, he came straight from school, so he obviously took the boat
Hmm.
from the Netherlands, and it was actually accompanied by Casey Jansmo, who actually had that interview with him many years later. And so he's still at school, he's still doing his studies, and then all of a sudden he's playing for Ajax against Malmo in European competition. You know, it just goes to show what a precocious talent that he was. And as I say, Arsenal are very, very lucky to have had him. They really are. You know, and
Yeah. Yeah.
people. There's even his penalty miss against Manchester United in the 1999 FA Cup semi-final. You know, he didn't take another penalty after that. I believe I can't remember him
Mm.
taking another penalty after that. But and people say, oh, he didn't fly, but he gave so much for the club and
Yeah.
changed the club. You know that I will never say, oh, he couldn't fly, couldn't do this, and couldn't do that. You have to respect his opinions, but
I
Arsenal
think
fans who can remember him, we must be aware how lucky we were to have him.
James, as a collective, we had such a great team collected. Not just Bergkamp. There was men, and all 11 positions were leaders. That I think we harken back to those days, and we could have done so much more. I don't think it just lays at Bergkamp's feet. I think it lays at the
No,
talent.
I fully agree. It certainly does not just stay at his feet. I mean, it reminds me of when the 1998 World Cup, when there was some criticism in the Dutch media in terms of the progression to the final, where some people in some quarters targeted him, and he rebuffed it. You know, it's a team effort at the end of the day. I remember him saying in one of the interviews that it's about being in the right place at the right time, and sometimes sometimes it goes for you, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think, as you say, I believe that Arsenal team should have won more, but you've also got to look back at what we did win. You know, we
Yep,
won
I've
league titles, won three league titles,
I've
and
got a list.
you know,
I've got a list here, and we'll get into that year by year. Reason
mm,
UK had a question, James. Wasn't there an
okay.
issue with Overmars? Can't remember if it was with Dennis or perhaps Anelka.
An issue in terms of disagreement.
Possibly, yes.
Well, I remember Ian Wright saying that when he used to room with Bergkamp, that when Overmars arrived, he he didn't give the green light, but kind of offered Overmars to go and room with Bergkamp. So I can't believe that them two had a falling out. You know, they've obviously been known as very good friends at international level as well. And I think possibly with Anelka, but I mean Anelka was so young and so precocious, you know, and signed for only £750,000, and just such a precocious talent. I think the falling out may have possibly been there, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine it was something between Bergkamp and Overmars.
So we're into the 1996 season. Dennis Bergkamp finishes with 11 goals in 33 games,
Mm.
and he scores a winner, as they talked about in the documentary. Scores a
Mm.
winner to haul Arsenal into the UEFA Cup place. And then Vieira has come on board. Petit has come on board, and I think Overmars, if I'm not mistaken. The
Yeah,
next season,
I think
97, 98.
96, 90, possibly 97, 98 was Overmars, I believe.
Yeah. Let's talk about that year.
96, 97. Oh, 97,
97,
98. Yeah.
98.
Yeah.
The famous double
Arsene
winning year.
Wenger's first full season.
Yeah, no, just tremendous, really. Just, I think we won 18 games in a row to win that league title, and just kept winning. And a fantastic double, Overmars scoring in the FA Cup final and Anelka too. And yeah, just a tremendous double year, really, and
And
just a fantastic mix of English grit and English flair. I see my hair is back. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Can you
so,
hear
Connection was
us?
a bit laggy, but
Ah,
yeah,
so
yeah, it's
my,
I can see. I can.
my
one of those.
here, my here, 1997, 1998. We struggle a little bit in the league up until Christmas. There's a defining game, James. Do we
Mm.
lose to Blackburn 3-1?
Well, when I think back to that season, I think that the home win against Manchester United was also very important. I think.
3-2.
Do you remember that one with David Platt? I think that.
The
I think
hairs
that
are
was.
sticking up again.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was just. But as I say, it's good. It's good to look back. It really is.
Hmm.
It's nice to look back and reflect. I mean, I was thinking today. I go to my next Arsenal match away at Sheffield United next Monday. So it's only my second away match of all my time here. But really looking forward to it. But as you say, it's great to look back. And all the memories that you've got, and
Yeah,
from when, as you
that
say, when
game.
you started supporting Arsenal. And
Anelka, Vieira, and Platt.
yeah, well, the experience of David Platt, I believe, is very underrated.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, he was had a tremendous career at Aston Villa. Also played in Italy for Sampdoria, I believe, and Bari. And yeah, very underrated player, and also international
very,
experience as
very
well.
underrated. Very,
Uh,
very underrated.
so we struggle. We do quite well under Wenger. We
Just
struggle
excuse
a
me
little
for
bit
2
up
minutes,
till
guys.
Christmas. Yes, got it.
Sorry, guys. Just excuse me for a few minutes. I'll be back. I'll be back
No
again.
problem. No problem. These young pups, James, they lose interest very quickly.
I don't know. I think it's the internet connection. I think. I think my
Um,
I think my hair is really enjoying it, and his points as well are also valid. It's a team effort, of course. That's
yeah.
what it's all about. It's about
I hope
a team
everybody,
effort and also having fun.
everybody is enjoying this walk down memory lane. Uh,
Yeah,
we lose, we
really
lose,
fun.
we lose against Blackburn 3-1, and there's a team
Mm,
meeting.
mm,
There's a team meeting
mm.
where all players get it out in the open because you have new players that have come into the team, foreign players. Talk about that for a bit, James. The old guard were there. The back
Well,
famous back four.
well, the old guard were not only great defenders but also fantastic characters. Just fantastic characters with a tremendous will to win and to spur the flair of the international players on. I think it was just making sure that there's a good base upon which to work from. Wanting to win. Wanting to get those final trophies, to have that medal haul. And when you look back at the likes of Bold and Adams and Dixon and Winterburn, they they really gave their all in their final seasons in their career. And also Dan one makes a great point about the Overmars goal at Old Trafford, which was also vitally important. Was
Yeah,
also, I mean, it was a tremendous goal as well.
we
And
were we were winning games, James, and they were faltering. I remember
yeah,
against Newcastle. Did they
mm,
have a player sent off? Schmeichel.
possibly,
Schmeichel, I
possibly,
believe.
but
Uh,
the
we
way
were
we, the way we came back to with the 18 games was just tremendous.
we were coming up on their coattails, and they were starting to feel the pressure.
Mm,
Mahir, if you ever saw, a
Yeah.
Manchester United team right now that feels the pressure, back in 1997, 98, in the spring time, that Manchester United team felt the pressure under a
mm.
relentless charge. James, we just kept winning games.
Yeah, well, especially at home as well. I remember games that we used to win at home, and it just felt just felt that things were coming along, and
We weren't going to lose.
In the final day as well, where we demolished Everton 4-0 with Adam scoring the cherry on the cake with the goal as well. And it was just a tremendously exciting time, and with the FA Cup shortly afterwards as well, was very, very just caps off a tremendous season, really. And that's what I say. It's about trophies. Trophies are vitally important. I mean, just before I go, people saying about Champions League being the be all and end all. This season for me, and I've said it before. I've also said it on Alex's pod on Cannon Fodder. The most important thing for me is that Arsenal win a trophy this season. That is the most important thing. People can talk about Champions League and the financial rewards, and everybody wants to be in the Champions League, and so on and so on. There's only 32 teams in the Champions League. There's only realistically about 6 to 8 teams that can actually win the Champions League. We are also old enough to remember, Ray, when the Champions League had 2 group phases and Arsenal would barely get through the group. Do you remember those days?
Yes.
James, but
I'm under no illusions. If I can get back into the Champions League, I don't expect us to get into the lap straight away. We haven't won a European trophy for 26 years. We've got a tremendous opportunity to put this right. We made a great start against Standard Liège, although it's a very poor Standard Liège, and winning in Frankfurt. And I think the most important thing is a trophy. The Champions League. If we get into the Champions League, yes, that's great. But when we get back into it, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. And we've got to, in the history books. I mean, it's just my opinion. We had 20 years of Champions League football, and people took it for granted, just expecting us to get into the top 4.
Yeah.
But I took no pleasure. I took no pleasure in getting beat by Monaco. I took no pleasure in getting absolutely battered by Bayern Munich. I took no pleasure in struggling past a Montpellier side at home 2-0. Although we won that game, we started off quite poorly, I remember. And although it sounds strange to say, the Europa League is our level at the minute. And I see a lot of fans expecting Champions League. Well, we've got a European trophy to win this season, and then we're back in the Champions League.
Mahir, did you have a question, Mahir?
Yeah, no, it's not more of a question. It's more of like an opinion. I love the fact that you've eased a lot of us Gooners.
That's a question and a half from Bergkamp. That's a question and a half, isn't it?
I love
if I take my... Obviously, we're on an Arsenal pod.
Take your Arsenal hat off.
If I took my Arsenal hat off, you'd have to say Zidane.
Yeah.
Because Zidane just... I mean...
Here's what I want to get at, James. Both of them had that spark in them that they could get red cards, right?
Indeed.
There's parallels between both players.
They did. But that's also a fantastic will to win. Just a tremendous will to win. And you see with the... But that's a good thing. It really is a good thing. And I think with Zidane as well, this is a man that brought Bordeaux to a European final. When was the last time Bordeaux were even in Europe?
Yeah.
This is a man that brought Bordeaux to a European final. When were Bordeaux even in a European competition? And to become the best player in France, and to become the best player in a very, very difficult Serie A, and then to become the best player in Spain, and then to win the World Cup and European Championships, and not just win it, be influential in both. Just tremendous. So I'd have to say Zidane, but that's but as I say, that's only if I took my Arsenal hat off. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure tonight. It really has. I've really enjoyed it. I'm sorry that Mahir's volume's gone, because his points are also very, very valid and also very interesting.
He's still here.
I look forward to catching up with you both soon, and I hope the viewers have enjoyed it.
No problem. Thank you, James, for coming on. Appreciate your time.
And also, I'm sure the listeners will know, they might have heard me saying Dennis.
Thank you so much, James. We really appreciate you coming
and saying, I'm thinking, is that how you say it? But I only say it because I know how to say it properly. I'm not trying to be a smart ass.
Native tongue.
I'm not trying to be a smart ass, but just obviously trying to be the perfectionist. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really enjoyed it. and I look forward to speaking
Look,
to you both again soon.
Thanks, James.
South Africa has a secret
Take care.
language.
All the best. Bye-bye. Bye.
So
See you.
Mahir, I think there might have been some audio issues where James could not hear you.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was, I think, quite a bit of lag, if I'm not mistaken. So apologies to our subscribers and everybody that follows us. But
It's
we
all
really do appreciate all your comments in the chats and with us live or on a rerun. We absolutely love the support and keep the questions coming in. If you'd like to be featured, you can contact Ray, the host, my
yeah.
brother, or you can contact yours truly. Um, on Gundit News Facebook. Like I say, just get into touch with us if you'd like to be featured, so we can have you on live video for our podcasts.
So
The Arsenal
Mahir,
fan,
smash the like button right now if you get a chance, people. I really do
please.
appreciate it. This is a special Interlull Extra episode. We're going to do this from time to time, and I think the next episode should be next one we do of this Gundit should be Tony Adams.
Yeah, it's only right, Mr. Austin himself.
Just to switch it up, and then after that maybe Theory Henry.
Yeah.
When we get gaps in the season, these damn international breaks come along. Let's do it.
These damn international boring breaks that are pointless, really. I know people love their countries, but
Yeah.
personally, the love for your club
Well,
is a lot
I,
more. Don't
I
you agree?
am I'm disappointed Ireland did not get a win tonight against Georgia. They're gonna have you know who they're gonna have to beat? Granit Xhaka's team to have a decent chance of qualifying. We're top of the table with Denmark right now, and we have to
Come
beat
on, Ireland.
Switzerland. Well, Granit Xhaka won't be playing anyway. That might actually make it more difficult for us. Listen, congratulations to Granit Xhaka. I understand he has a newborn with his family, and he is a human being. We must also congratulate a special time in his life. So, talk a little bit about. I mean, moving on from
So
that, talk
Granit
a little
Xhaka.
bit. Go ahead.
So if Granit Xhaka, if you do manage to somehow watch the Arsenal fan circle, congratulations from Raymond and myself on the birth of your daughter. I mean, us fans, we do slate a lot of players a lot of the time. Deservingly, undeservingly, but we're all humans in the end. Family is what matters the most.
So, in a moment, we will pick up the rest of the Bergkamp story. We're just going to get into the comments a little bit. Do you remember
Yeah.
Luis Boamorte?
Luis Bomote. Why does that name ring a that name does ring a bell
He was
somehow?
he came on and scored. He came on and scored a goal in 1997, 1998, which was vital to Arsenal winning the league and cup double. That year they beat Newcastle 2-0 in the FA Cup as well. Mark Overmars, Nicolas Anelka.
Yeah. Now the name does ring a bell. It's just Ray, like our subscribers may or may not know. I am maybe of a little bit of a younger generation. I mean, I love in-depth analysis and finding out things I didn't know
Yeah,
about our loved club. And it's just one of
you
these things that if you told me now that might have jogged the memory and that might let somebody who doesn't know about it go and look back at the good days, the good old days, as per se.
How old were you in 1998?
Let, let's leave that as a mystery that will be solved by maybe Scooby Doo and the gang.
All right, so listen, we beat Manchester United 1997, 1998. Next season, Manchester United come back stronger. We beat them in the Charity Shield, and
um,
yep.
you know what?
But we come second in the league. 1999, the year of the treble for them. That's all.
Can
We're
I
just gonna,
can I give you something interesting about that?
yeah.
I was discussing with my cousin, you know, the good old days, we love a lot of us do love reminiscing. And what may have spurred it on was Wenger being an unknown name and coming into the Premier League and managing Arsenal, right?
Hmm.
And us winning the double. And at that time, Fergie as well, who was up and coming, basically. Well, not up and coming as per se, but you know what I mean. I'm sure our subscribers do too. Wanting to one up. I mean, imagine you're a recognized coach, world class, basically, and this unknown name comes out of nowhere and just takes your spot, by winning a double. Obviously, you're gonna try and one up him. Is in maybe what resulted with them. And you know what? I think while we're talking about it, couldn't we have prevented them from winning the treble? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, because James talked about Dennis missing that penalty in the FA
There we
Cup
go.
semi-final, and we wouldn't have fucking seen Giggsy's matted chesty hairy chest. You know, Dennis Bergkamp scores that penalty. I don't blame Dennis Bergkamp for missing the penalty, but Jesus, nobody wants to see Giggsy's hairy chest.
Well, even in today's time,
I
it's
don't get
not even
angry very
embarrassing
much.
to take your shirt.
I don't get angry very
No, I
much,
mean to
but I
take
didn't
your.
want to see that.
Yeah, no, I really truly understand where you're coming from. But I mean, even in today's time, if we're talking about in general, it's not even embarrassing to find somebody with the chest of a gorilla, basically, taking their shirt off at the beach. It's like common. So that whole celebration was mad, also because
Yeah.
running through a defense that consisted of, well, I mean, till today, world class players, a full squad we had of world class players. I mean, to run through them like it was nothing was crazy, I
And
must say.
one of them should have taken them down, hacked them down outside the box.
Maybe
Lightweight.
if we had somebody like old school Granit Xhaka, then he wouldn't be with us right
Yeah,
now.
Granit Xhaka would have
I'm
done
just
it. Yeah,
joking. It's all fair and well. It's all fair and well. It's just jokes, guys. It's just banter. Take nothing offensively that we say. It may just be personal opinion, and we're just talking amongst us brothers.
yes,
Alex just
Alex.
used
Alex,
the F word.
I don't get angry often, Alex. But when I'm thinking about fucking Giggsy running around with his chesty,
Oh, guys, I'm dying. Normally it's the other way around. It's normally yours truly that's dropping F bombs and saying, pardon my language, but you can understand where Ray's coming from. Ray, it's one of the incidences where, it's one of those situations that person off to think about,
yeah, yeah.
Right.
So if it's a show about Dennis Bergkamp, there's hell of a lot of good things to talk about. But
Oh, yes, definitely.
bad things were he missed that penalty. Not we forgive him. We forgive you, Dennis. But losing to Manchester United and them going on to win the FA Cup, we all knew in some way we knew that they would go on to win the treble. It was just one of those seasons for Manchester United. That was when Solskjaer was ordained the people's champion when he flicked that ball into the net. Yeah. Anyway, Alex
Anyway,
got a real kick out of me cursing, Alex. Look for the Interlull episode. Ray curses at 1 hour and 10 minutes. Uh, there's
but
a good comment there from Reason. I miss the
let's
arrogance
see.
of our playing style. Teams used to love kicking us to try and stop us
Reason.
playing. Now, let me tell you something about that, Mahir. because of this generation where we were winning things, we were doing well. It has benefited us this season. We have players on our books today because they chose Arsenal, because as kids, they grew up watching Arsenal win things in the 90s. I'm talking about Saliba, who's doing hella good things at St. Etienne. I'm talking about Ceballos and other players like that have been influenced to come to us rather than them lot who shall not be named. Not once, not twice, but thrice times players have denied Spurs to come to us in recent times.
In recent times, somebody like Saliba who rejected to say, no, I've seen Arsenal greats. I've seen this great club back when I was really small, from when I was young, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way right up into the teenage days play. And I would really love to play for Arsenal because I would love to emulate the same kind of results, or at least just give my everything to try and emulate becoming a
because
great
because
or
of this shirt.
exactly. I don't have a badge here, guys, but you guys know that my heart pumps. There's a cannon behind it, so yeah.
So yes, thank you. People in the comments, help us along here as we go through the years, the Dennis Bergkamp years. Um, we lose the title at Leeds. Tony Oboe scores against Arsenal. Arsene Wenger kicks a plastic bottle for the first time. He would do that many times more, but for the first time, we see Arsene Wenger kicking a bottle of water.
I mean, Wenger was a great guy. We just wish that he realized during the latter years that Ray, we discussed it in the first season, a few episodes in, or later on during the season, that Wenger really should have gone out on a high. Like we would have loved that. And with the managers that were available, it's just that maybe right now it could have transformed it a little bit more. Maybe we would have won one or two Premier Leagues. Maybe we would have won a Champions League with
Yeah,
signing just maybe even one player worth 50 more.
yeah,
In today's time, in today's age, you could have been maybe sitting with a world class team like Man City without having to pay, without having to spend what at least like half a billion, 750 million to get a full squad of not only 11 players, a starting 11, but backups, maybe two backups for each position. And I mean, to be honest with you, I still love our club as is right now. I mean, we're in a good rebuilding stage. We had a good start to the season. Some ugly wins, but wins nonetheless. 3 points. And I mean, I even love the thing that James said, and our subscribers were reacting to it as well, where they said, where we were saying, I love how he calmed us down. To matter of fact, are we champion? Can we really compete in Champions League if we do get back inside? As badly as everybody's saying, sack Emery, he doesn't get top four. Maybe we should spend another year trying to see where our level's at, which is, like James said, is Europa League, unfortunately. But who knows if we can build better from that? Just now
look,
we go into
I
Champions League and don't make it past group stages.
yeah. Well, I think we're all getting tired of the Europa League now. I think we want to dip our toes into the Champions League and hear that music on Wednesday nights and play our games on Saturdays as well. We're in a constant state of catch up with our fixtures, Mahir. We play Sundays. When we come back, we're going to play on a Monday. So all of the other teams have had an opportunity will have an opportunity to leapfrog us a little bit. Now we're in a good position, but we do need to win our games.
But surely we should get a win with Sheffield United. And Emery, please put out our, the listen to us as well. I mean, if like surely not to put three defensive midfielders in the middle, all of the same basically, all of the same, not caliber, but same defensive mindset. I know you seem to be scared or telling your captain things like we were scared in the second half, and don't instill that in them. That's a very weak-minded mentality,
Yeah.
and you're gonna go into matches like that. I mean, any small team can come in with the idea with a mindset like, look how weak Arsenal is. Look how they're setting up. Let's
Hmm.
just give them all. Let's just attack them. Watford nearly did that.
So
Um,
yeah,
United nearly, Bante FC nearly did that. As bad as shocking as they are. I mean, we can't afford to go along this route any longer.
no. Okay, 1999 to 2000. People will remember this. It was a frustrating one for us. And we finished 18 points behind Manchester United. Um, we go to the 2000 UEFA Cup final against Galatasaray, and we lose on penalties. Um, the departure of Mark Overmars and Emmanuel Petit means that Arsene Wenger needs to find new players. And who comes in on the left wing? Only, do you know? Do you know your history? I'll tell you. Robert Perez. Arsenal. Arsene Wenger's had to change the team around. The Robert Perez comes in, and in the year 2000 to 2001, a little bit more disappointment. We come second in the league to Manchester United. I believe losing to Leeds. Um, Mark Viduka, I think, scored a goal. We are also runners up in the FA Cup with Michael Owen scoring against us in that final. A final that we dominated, I hear.
But you see, that's the that's the problem. Even in today's time, we may dominate a match, but just eventually capitulate somehow. I mean, giving away a penalty in the last few seconds of a game is even a possibility because the players' mentality is right. We've discussed. It needs to be sharp. They need to be focused. They need to not work as individual players, but as a team. Because if there's no team chemistry, it's literally individuals. And like most of the time, if if an individual is having a bad day, for example, a bad game, and there's no leaders to lead, he just gives up. And then literally you're playing with like 10 men. You're playing with 10 men, you're playing with 9 men, you're playing with 8 men because three guys' heads is not in the game. If you catch my drift.
Yeah, Don Juan. They were some difficult years. We lost to Galatasaray in, like I said, penalty on penalties. But we come back the next year and we do the league and cup double. This is where we won the league, Mahir. Sylvain Wiltord scored the goal at Old Trafford. I remember my old countryman, Roy Keane, saying Manchester United. He looked around the dressing room, a Manchester United dressing room, and they had nothing to give. Of course, Keane would give it all, give everything, but that Manchester United team uh, was not good enough on the night against our Arsenal. We went to Old Trafford and won the game 1-0. A shot from Lundberg, I believe, and Sylvain
Very
Wiltord
long.
finishing the ball into the net. Arsenal win the league and they win the FA Cup that year. Arsene Wenger had reinvented the team, replacing Emmanuel Petit and Mark Overmars. I believe he
You see,
bought Gilberto and Robert Perez, of course.
But that's the thing, Ray. Even in today's time, if you sell a player, and if even if the player is not good enough for your club and you have to sell him, you need to replace them with an adequate or if not better quality player. Banta FC are struggling. They needed to sell Sanchez. They didn't manage that. They got him on loan to Inter Milan. Same with Lukaku, they managed to sell. But why they are struggling also so much is they didn't replace these players. With the case of Pires, for example,
Yeah.
that's replacing quality with quality, and that's how a team improves, and the chemistry becomes better, the coaching becomes better. It has a domino effect right through. Winning a league and an FA Cup double, I mean, is one of the fondest memories of a lot of old school and new school Gooners.
And Reason UK, thank you for mirroring what I had said. Um, I'm just a podcaster. Sometimes I get things wrong, but thankfully I got that right. Um, Matt here. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the Riley Bergkamp interview. You've seen the interview, and you see the
Yes.
part
Very
where
well.
Dennis he asked Dennis, was it a fluke? Was the goal intended? That Bergkamp goal versus Newcastle.
Look, intentional or not intentional, you gotta admire even the way the questions were answered. You know, and what a close bond they have even until today. I mean, it looked like right. He literally had tears in his eyes when he saw him again. He said, "I haven't seen you in such a long time."
The funniest,
Going touring through the house, the memorabilia, talking about it astonishes me at how much they actually loved our club, and those players I admire even more. Even if you don't know about them, you admire them even more when it's like a brotherly bond, man. It's like I haven't seen you in such a long time. Do you remember this? Do you remember when we caught on this nonsense or that nonsense? Talking between friends, or but like with them,
yeah, they're in their own
like
bubble,
talking.
those two, because they room together as well.
You see, but that's exactly what I mean. It's crazy the amount of chemistry. The way they were speaking, it's like, oh yeah, do you remember that time? It's like, yeah, I remember exactly who was in front of me, who was behind me, who was standing on the side of me. I remember the person, I remember the crowd reaction, I remember the time, date. It's amazing.
Well, do you know
It's
what he remembers about that goal? Robert Perez gave him a bad pass. That's what
yeah,
he
yeah,
remembers.
that's literally I think he said
And
something along the lines of, and I wasn't expecting it or anything, and then the ball was a little bit behind me, but
mhm.
somehow we managed to get it in the back of the net. I was like, oh, you guys, it's just, it's just, there's no words for
So
it, man. You understand
the ultimate top player, Dennis
that
Bergkamp,
bond? That bond is something
improvising
else.
improvising from a
That bond
bad
is something
pass.
else, and memories. I mean, you can never take away any of those kind of things, even between friends.
Yeah, and like Reason UK saying, thanks for helping me out here in the comments. That Newcastle goal was insane. He meant it, but it wasn't planned. It was just lightning quick reaction, and that's what he talks about in the documentary.
Means
Bobby actually gives him a bad pass. It's on his wrong side, but he thinks about it, and instead of going with the ball, he flicks it one side, rolls Dabby's ass, the defender, on the other side, gets his body in front of the defender now. So the defender can't do anything but give away a penalty. And he sees the whites of the goalkeeper's eyes. And a lot of players can get into that position with skill, but you have to have the composure as well, Gunded News, to put it away.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. It even goes back to till today. Uh, certain intentional or unintentional. But if you've got that world classness about you, world classness, that's a new word for you
It's a
guys.
new word.
Yeah, I don't know how I managed that one. But if you have this world classness about you where you've got a super fast reaction time, like Reason just said, lightning quick reaction, and still manage to put it in the back of the net, it becomes even more amazing, whether it's intentional or unintentional. It's undescribable, is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Undescribable.
yeah. I like Reason UK said that's absolute improvisation. And he said, like he said in the documentary, my here, he didn't know that it was a special goal until later, much later, until he'd seen it.
I don't think there's a lot of players who have played for a lot of top clubs in the world that have referred to it as the Lundberg flick. The Lundberg flick. What am I saying? The Bergkamp flick. Pardon me, guys. I got
Yeah,
caught up there. Basically, a brain fart. I had a brain fart. The Bergkamp flick,
it's
and
Bergkamp where red hair dyed on his head.
yes, 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 yes. um, but a lot of people have tried to recreate the same. I mean, even the likes of a Ronaldinho, I'm sure tried it once or twice, maybe a countless occasions, and it's never been imitated ever. I don't think we'll ever. Maybe if we are very, very lucky, we'll manage to see it again somehow
I think
replicated.
I have seen that
Have you
Reason
seen?
UK. The pros tried to recreate that goal.
You see, reason I like.
You could be out there a
Yeah,
hundred times, you might not be able to do that 100 times, or even once out of 100. So
because it
we
was
win
just that
the
hard.
so that season we win the FA Cup and the league in imperious fashion. Robert Perez is he gets injured, but he's named Player of the Year, and I still remember all of the team going like this to Bobby Perez because
Mhm.
he was magnificent that season. We roll on for Dennis Bergkamp, 2002 2003. He reaches a personal landmark of 100 goals for Arsenal when he scores against Oxford United in the FA Cup third round. In the league, Arsenal failed to retain the championship despite having led by 8 points in March. However, they did win the FA Cup for the second successive year, beating Southampton. And Robert Perez scoring that goal, I remember 1-0 to the Arsenal against Southampton. So at this point, my here, we're stacking up FA Cups, and Arsene Wenger in particular has won probably three or four of his FA Cups. Actually, probably four because he finishes with seven. Actually, this is his third one because we do win against Manchester United in 2005, an FA Cup, and then we add on the three more in the lean years, let's say, the last 10 years that have been lean. So this
Yeah.
was Wenger's third FA Cup win. Uh, on the 20th of July, Bergkamp signs a one-year extension at the club, and we have a comment from Don Juan. We love you, Freddie, because you have red hair. We love you, Freddie, because you're everywhere. We love you, Freddie, because you're Arsenal through and through. And who's this? Let's talk about Freddie Lundberg. He's done a great job with the young players. Right here.
You see, but that's just the thing. If you can implement former players with big hearts and a lot of experience behind them, they can as youth coaches or coaches in the first team, for example, maybe assistants, they can have a very big impact on the way the club is. Because, like the likes of Edu bringing in Martinelli, Freddie bringing in a lot of these youngsters, I think it's fantastic because it gives Arsenal another dimension, as per se, where maybe Emery will be struggling with something. He'll be struggling with his first team players. and he brings in the likes of a Saka, a Joe Willock, and says, "Coach, I know you've been struggling, so let me help you out a bit. Take some of these youngsters and let's develop them into first team players." And whether or not that works out, I mean, there's still impact, like some of them have very big impact. The likes of a Martinelli right now, doing bits in Europa, and hopefully continues. Joe Willock knocking on the door, first team. Saka being given minutes in the first team. Who else am I thinking of? Reece Nelson. Uh, it's simply amazing.
Could he be lined up to be a future Arsenal coach in the years to come?
To be honest with you, it just depends on how things actually go. Between now and a space of time which is unknown, because we've
So yeah,
seen
because it's the future.
we've seen Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We've seen Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. As much as we love legends coming
Hmm.
back into our club, we've seen Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fail. He's failing miserably. He's possibly on the chopping block.
Let me
I
ask
think
you a question.
after Liverpool, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. If you're a Manchester United fan, and I know it's hard to put yourself in that space, if you're a Manchester United fan and you've seen
Okay.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, does it taint his reputation for you as a club legend?
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
For
It,
me, it wouldn't, because he did what he did as a player, and now he's a manager. It's two different things for me.
no, I'm saying,
No,
yeah,
don't back down. We want
I'm
to have an
agreeing with
argument here.
you. No, 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 no. We're not gonna. No, what I'm saying is, with my statement, I'm talking about why they don't want to sack him, or why players won't have. They'll have a very biased opinion, like you need to give Ollie time and all this, and regardless of what he's done, I love him. And if we do fire him and get a new coach, we just have to rebuild, which is true. But I'm also agreeing with you, where you saying it shouldn't matter whether you're a legend and whether you're a legend of a club. You should be performing as a manager. And he hasn't done that with the clubs that he's been at. He was with Cardiff, and I think that was all. If I'm not, I don't know if maybe he was manager of another club,
Yeah.
but he didn't do anything. He didn't have a major
See,
impact with those clubs.
for me, I've been following.
Now
I've
to
been
bring him
follow,
into a club and like,
for me, I've been following Patrick Vieira, and one day, I want to see him as an Arsenal coach. If he fails miserably, for me, he's still being one of the best Arsenal midfielders ever. I would probably separate both things from
but you
being a
see,
coach and being a player.
but that Ray, that's why I'm saying with both statements, we're both coming from exactly the same place. We're just saying it in different ways.
Okay,
Where it doesn't matter whether you're a legend at a club, or whether you're a world class player at any other club. You should have a pedigree of other clubs that you've managed, which is experience basically.
right.
And but unfortunately
That
with
doesn't
him,
always that
we
doesn't always happen. The manager merry-go-round always changes. That doesn't always happen.
no,
When a coach comes along, you need to make an appointment, and Manchester United did that with OGS, and it's been a
you need to.
spectacular failure.
Yeah, but you need to. But that's the thing. You need to make the right appointment,
Yeah,
because the coach needs to have a philosophy. So if he's not following a philosophy of the club from a long time, previous years, previous coaches, it's just going to be back to the drawing board. You're going to be putting an eraser on a former stars don't always make good managers, but that's exactly the point. Reason
hmm.
you have to have pedigree, you have to have
But
experience.
I
Otherwise,
agree. I understand all of that, but I still would want to see Vieira at some point be given a chance and see what happens. And we're not in any way advocating Emery out at this point, although
no, I know,
we
no,
have
no,
to
no.
We have to wait
please,
and see Bellerin, Holding, and Tierney coming in. But
please,
listen,
guys, don't use our words like a Rubik's cube because we're not advocating Emery out at all. At
we're
all,
just talking about
we're just
future. We're touching on Freddie Lundberg and what he may do for us in the future.
mm-hmm.
2003, 2004, we won the title at Old Trafford. We win the title at Tottenham Hotspur. Let's take a moment to laugh about that.
Genuine laughter again, guys.
There we
The
go. Who
best.
remembers Ozzy when he managed Spurs? Gutted when they weren't relegated. Yeah.
I can't believe I can't believe Banta FC are actually in the relegation zone and they might get please, please. This goes out to all the teams. Aston Villa, West Ham, please, everybody just give Banta FC a hiding. Please. Let them get relegated. Please.
Mahir, Mahir,
Please.
how important is it to you that we maintain our Invincibles tag? The Liverpool don't get that this year.
It's one thing that we've been holding on to for a long time. And I would love, and I
Us
would
Arsenal
personally,
fans need to hold on to these things.
yeah, we need to hold on to the little bits that we do have. Because without it, I mean, imagine if they do that, then Liverpool fans are actually going to have a one up extra on us, aside from having two Champions League, excuse me.
They've
Uh,
won well, yeah, they won European Cups as well.
and European Cups as well. I
They've
mean,
won six. They've
imagine
won six.
Imagine the banter that's going to come from everybody else. Not that I care, but if Liverpool go unbeaten and take that record away from us, because that will mean that that's just one extra thing that we don't have.
So Arsene Wenger famously said the year before that this team could go unbeaten. The press laughed at him. It didn't happen that year, but in 2003, 2004, Arsenal would go unbeaten for the whole season.
I mean, one, it's undescribable again, my guy, because and my our subscribers, because it hasn't been replicated ever since. That's why even Ray was asking me now, like, should we hope that this doesn't happen? And I'm saying, oh hell yes,
Yes,
because
yes.
there's just one extra thing that other clubs are gonna have over us. Not talking over us, but like they're gonna give us banter. Not that
Because
we care.
there's only one team that ever won the Golden Premier League, and that's us.
Yep.
That's
Sitting
a
in our
little
trophy
shred of
cabinet.
something we're hanging on to this thing.
It's like hanging off a cliff and that that strong piece is just there, just holding on to us. It's actually holding on to us. And we're like, if somebody just comes along and just decides, hey, I'm just gonna cut this rope, we're gonna die. I know it's a terrible pun or terrible example, but yeah.
Okay, and reasons. I wish Arsenal Fan TV existed in them days. Times would be good. Times would be very good. Like I said at the start of the show, I wanted to get outside of the Arsenal bubble. I checked out Redman TV. Those Liverpool boys up there having fun this season, and it's really nice for them to be on the back of 8 wins on the trot. And we can take a we're relaxing here this weekend because we haven't come off of a defeat. We didn't lose last weekend. Contrary to popular belief, we didn't lose. Now, Mahir, do we want a better style of play for Arsenal? Something that Dennis Bergkamp wants.
Look,
Absolutely, right?
absolutely, absolutely. But if we can grind out ugly results, I couldn't care less. Because those, I mean, at the back end of a season, if we do fall out, these type of games like the game against Watford and Tottenham, where we could have picked up an extra 2 points apiece, which is about 4 points.
Hmm.
It's going to matter. It's going to matter, really, honestly and truly. But
Yeah.
like James has calmed us down on the whole. Maybe we're not on Champions League standards. Yeah, for the money and the players that it can attract, but with regards to can we compete without being knocked out? Maybe we should go for cups.
And look,
Will the ball fit it to the ball?
I'm jumping around a little bit here, but going back to what James said, and I'm not comparing Pepe to Bergkamp, but let's compare him in the sense that he's a foreign player. He's come to a new country. He needs that time to adjust. It took Dennis Bergkamp 7 or 8 games to do the same. It took Thierry Henry, another club legend, almost 10 games to get off the mark. So we got to give Pepe a little bit more time too.
Look, I do believe he's going to when he cracks on, he's gonna crack on, like really crack on. Once it starts flowing nicely, but
Yeah.
Emery would not also be helping the rest of the team's case with the likes of having always, the old heads in the squad. I know I sound like a broken record, guys, but I do apologize. And it's the same old, man. Like, we don't want to see that. We want to see young, exciting. And these youngsters will grind out by any means necessary one goal
I
to
love
win the
that term. You always say by any means necessary. We
I
must
go
win by any means necessary.
I go
Um,
by that motto, by any means necessary
let's
to grind.
let's look ahead till next Monday, 8 days
Okay.
from now, 9 days from now, because this is Saturday. This is Saturday podcast. We go to Sheffield United. We don't have one big point is, and congratulations to Granit Xhaka. He should not be playing that game because he's going to be on
No.
paternity leave. Um, so we don't have Granit Xhaka. We possibly will play Torreira in his natural position, of which he played at the international. By the way, he had a good game by all accounts for Uruguay. You see where I'm going with this? So we have a midfield that's balanced. We might have
But
fullbacks.
that's the point. If you have a balanced mud, if you have a balanced mud, right, they can help to the cause of the front line, which means, say for example, we do have Bellerin back. Pepe has said, I would love to form a partnership with the person who plays right wing. Sorry, not right wing, right back, which would
Mm-hmm.
be Bellerin. He
Yep.
would love to maintain a relationship there. I mean, I would also, for example, love to see on the left hand side a partnership of Martinelli and Tierney, for example, because these are two players that are showing they are so hungry to
You know
play
what?
for, you
You know
know.
what, man? Here, let's think about this for a second. You're going to have different deliveries from the flanks. Tierney's a player who likes to put crosses into the box, and I think Bellerin's a player who likes to cut the ball back, keep it low.
But how unpredictable is if you've got those two doing what they do, Tierney putting in crosses and Bellerin on the right hand side tearing it up hopefully and cutting back the ball, for a striker to tap in, and Pepe feeding off Bellerin and Martinelli with his pace and his hunger feeding off Tierney, or all four of them playing off each other's energy. I mean, can you see where I'm coming from? What I'm
Yeah,
getting at?
yeah. Let
We
me. Since we're doing this, we're probably going to be the first podcast to do this at 9 days in advance of the Sheffield United game. I'm going to give you my starting 11. I'm going to say Lacazette's fit as well, right? Here's my
Woo-hoo-hoo.
starting 11. Bernd Leno,
Okay,
Tierney, Holding, Chambers, Bellerin,
mine
Torreira,
is the exact backline with
Torreira
with
in front of them, Willock and Ceballos, Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Pepe.
that is my exact. you put Inception in my head, but not really, because I personally think that's the best way going forward from now. And hopefully nothing happens to anybody. We've got
That's our
Martinelli
that's our
off,
strongest team.
bring off. Yeah, I
That's
mean our youngest team, but I mean, come on, that's our future.
everyone
And
else
for the
will be
next
on the
few,
bench.
and Lacazette, over, that's our future for the next few years.
Yeah.
That's literally the best starting 11. So if everybody's fit, that's my exact lineup as well. What
Right.
else could I see possibly with that squad? No, there's nothing else actually.
Well, listen, let's finish up. It's been a long podcast. I hope this is a lot of content for everyone to digest, maybe in bite sizes, maybe a half a pod today, a half a pod tomorrow. 2 hours. We're going on 2 hours here, Mahir. This will be the longest
Maybe
podcast, but we give you
maybe
content.
4 30-minute sessions. 4 30-minute sessions, guys. We love all the support. Thanks for
Thank,
staying with us in the
thanks
group
for
chat.
staying with us, Reason UK. We were going to get to that. I love this testimonial. Never seen it. Look it up on YouTube. Arsenal All Star Game, and Dennis's face when Van Basten comes on is fantastic. I will definitely check that out. Reason UK. Thanks. Yeah, let's finish up.
Thank you.
Chelsea come on the scene, and the 2004-2005 season's not so great for Arsenal. The team finishes second, 12 points behind Chelsea. Um, Bergkamp plays 29 games. He's starting to be more of a substitute now in these years, Mahir. And this is where in his documentary he talks about, and maybe we'll finish with the best parts of our what we thought about the documentary really quickly toward the end to bring us up to 2 hours. Uh, but Dennis, this is where Dennis starts thinking about will he go on one more year, you know? And it coincides with the um, demolition of Highbury and moving to the Emirates. So I believe he stays for one more year just to finish his days with Highbury, and the perfect ending for him. Unfortunately, the we all know about the Champions League didn't work out for us. Thanks, Reason UK. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Watch it on playback. If anyone's watching on playback, we do appreciate your checking in, watching our stuff. Yeah, our Champions League didn't go our way. Dennis was substituted and was not used because of the sending off of Jens Lehmann. Um, Finishes out the next season, and actually, I think he scores on the last day of Highbury. Dennis Bergkamp scores a goal, which is a very fitting way to end his career with Arsenal. But as Reason UK had said, to check out the YouTube on his testimonial as well. Now let's get into for the last 7 or 8 minutes talking about that Ian Wright Bergkamp interview documentary. What was your funniest part? What did you thought? What were you flat out laughing at?
Well, to be honest with you, I just love the documentary. There wasn't any specific parts of the documentary that I just thought to myself, wow, I just literally sat down and watched it on my TV and just enjoyed everything about it. I'd love to ask you what is your favorite part of the documentary?
My favorite part was right at the end where Ian Wright. He's bubbly. He's full of energy. Must have been a great player to play with, but he sits down and he goes, "Yo, Dennis, I love you, man. I love you, Dennis." And Dennis kind of sits there at the table and he goes, he kind of laughs like, and then
Yeah,
Ian Wright's like, "Why can't you just say you love me back? I say I love you all the time, and you never say it back.
I said I love you, bro.
I love you, bro."
Matter of fact, now that you bring it up, I mean, it's really good to see that though. Like, imagine eventually you get to a point when you're friends with somebody where it's just like, I love you, dog. Like, You're just, I just love you, man.
Yeah,
And other
but
people
then it
maybe,
didn't say it back.
yeah, no, because certain, you see certain archetypes of people, like we were discussing earlier. Bergkamp is a very humble person. He's very family orientated. He's a very quiet. He's basically an introvert,
Hmm.
a person that he stays to themselves and their family.
Yeah,
They've got close friends. They do love those people and adore those people, but like it's very hard to say sometimes. If you catch the drift. Where other people who are extroverts can tell you straight out, like, I love you, man. I love you, man.
I thought that was the funniest thing. Burkamp just like sat there at the table, like he's like, "Oh fuck, I gotta say I love him." So he did.
You see, it's just the type. It depends on the type of personality of a person. James has said he's a very quiet person, very humbled, very family orientated. Those people tend to be a little bit more, a little bit more to themselves, and it's a little bit hard to say where you'll get the extrovert, such as your co-host, who, I mean, I'm not shy to talk. I'm really honestly not shy to get on camera and talk about anything to anybody. It can be a complete stranger. I will be
Yeah.
there to listen.
So I tweeted a few things out. One of the things I tweeted was in terms of Dennis Bergkamp. Imagine all the strikers that Bergkamp worked with. They had the pleasure of working with him. Ian Wright, Anelka was a great talent, and
Oh yeah.
Thierry,
Uh,
along with Ray Parler, Lundberg, and Perez. So they really benefited. Their careers really benefited from Dennis Bergkamp and his vision. If you ever watch a YouTube video of Dennis Bergkamp, you'll see all the good stuff, of course, but every pass, you'll see every pass where the striker did not even have to take a touch because it was right in their path and they could take a shot right there and then.
like
Precision,
pre- yeah.
absolute precision from Dennis Bergkamp. And that was the reason why a lot of these players, Ian Wright scored a lot of goals. I think he said it in the documentary. He's like, thanks, man. I love you, man.
I love it, man.
You give me a lot of
Because
goals.
because you even contributing to what a great player that person is. For us to look back and say, do you know what? As great of a player as all these strikers were, the Nicholas Anelka, the Perez's, the Lundbergs, um, do you know who contributed a lot also that didn't really take any credit for it? The man himself, the guy we all speaking about, Dennis Bergkamp.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, he had, you may not know, my here, he had this, the red mist would come down on him like we talked about with Zidane. Remember what Zidane did in the World Cup where he headbutted that, Dennis Bergkamp had a little bit of a streak in him like that as well. He was not going to be bullied, and no player on that team was going to be bullied.
You see, it's not arrogant as per se, but it's real stand up people. Most of the times you have to stand up for yourself, otherwise you get regarded as a pushover. And then if an opposition player or an opposition team must pick up on something, coach must pick up on it, can be used as a very big weakness and can be exploited. And at which point we, as the supporters, will be crying out because we'll be like, why didn't he fight back, or why didn't, after being slid tackle, after being slid by somebody very aggressively and was supposed to be given a red card, didn't he have a reaction to it?
Yeah,
I don't want to be professional, but it all has a snowball effect, a domino effect, a butterfly effect. Call it what you want to call it. It all has consequences.
back to the butterfly effect. You love that as well. So
The
this has
domino.
been a show. We're going to bring it up to 2 hours. This has been a show. Dennis Bergkamp, how he started a revolution at Arsenal. If you've enjoyed the show, please hit the subscribe button. This stuff is free. We're all buddies. We're all friends here. Just talking about Arsenal, and indeed we can talk about other things as well. 120, Matt here, 122 goals for Ajax in 239 matches. Amazing. For Arsenal, 87 goals in 315 games. He did not
What a
need to be a striker. He did not need to be the guy who was getting all of the goals. But he was supplying people like Ian Wright and Elka and Henri. And all three of those players will tell you how beneficial Dennis Bergkamp was to them in the team.
I think they all were on that. I love you, man. I think they all thought of every time they saw him. I love you, man, because you're just giving me assist. You're giving me such an easy job.
And there is hope for Arsenal fans that Dennis Bergkamp will, at some point in his career, come to live in London and work with Arsenal when his youngest has left the nest, I believe they said in the documentary. So we may
Yeah,
see another legend of the club come to work at Arsenal.
I mean, imagine the legend team up and possibly create something all together.
Good times ahead. Listen, we'll
Could
leave
be
it there.
great.
This has been Dennis Bergkamp, born May 10th, 1969. He's 50 years old, and hopefully we see him come back to the Arsenal at some point in the future. An
Yeah,
amazing servant for the team, one of the best players for the team, arguably the best player Arsenal's ever had, and we will be doing well if we have more players like him come through the doors. Right here.
yeah, bringing some
Enough,
impact.
enough said about an Arsenal legend. I hope you've all enjoyed this show. This has been Ray from Arsenal Fan Circle channel, the host, and this has been Mahir Abrams from Gundam News, my co-host, my bro, and yeah, consider hitting the like button, subscribe if you're new around here, and I hope this gets you through the boring, boring interlull. This has been an interlull session. This has been an interlull extra, and we are out of here. Come on, you Gunners. Let's get a win on Monday against Sheffield United. We will have a show next Sunday previewing that game. Talk to you
Let's
later,
do
mate.
this.
Gun the news. Thanks,
All right.
everybody, for watching. Really, really do appreciate all of our subscribers. And thanks for watching. We're out of here.